Sports presents Benning Bites with Damon Benning. Benning Bites with Damon Benning.
Another fantastic episode. Actually, I'll just go with the show. Whatever. Another opportunity to have a good episode of Benning Bites. How about that? That sounds a lot better. Just coming off a fantastic discussion yesterday. Kind of got us off track where one of the questions in our Zipline six-pack was if Nebraska was only going to go 6-6, which is where I think they got that number from, obviously, is the Vegas win total and just kind of playing it safe, right? 500. Which 3-game set would you take for victories? And it was Minnesota, Michigan, and Northwestern, or Iowa, Wisconsin, and Maryland. And at first blush, like right away I said, man, give me Iowa, Wisconsin, and Maryland. Because that just means that you've done something you haven't done since Nebraska's been in the Big Ten. And that's beat all those teams in the same year. You haven't beat Iowa and Wisconsin in the same year. So why not pick that one? Because I consider Iowa and Wisconsin the two favorites in the West. But you're probably like, DB, God, you've been talking about if Nebraska could just get off to a 2-0 start and the recruiting momentum and all the buzz and everybody's just waiting to fall in love. You know, the analogy I gave on yesterday's show was I used Shane, our producer. I go, gosh, I said, Shane is so ready to fall in love. All the girl that he likes has to say to him is hello. And he's like all in. Is Nebraska going 2-0 the same as just waiting for your potential significant other to say hello to you before you're all in? It kind of seems like that, right? I've talked about Minnesota's success against Nebraska, and Colorado has been everywhere in the media. And is their plan going to work? Is it not going to work? Can you imagine if Nebraska goes 2-0? So I thought to myself, oh, shoot. If Nebraska's only going to win 6 games, and you give me the hot start of beating Minnesota, Michigan, and Northwestern, that means they lose their last 5 games, right? Because you can only win 6. But let's say you go with my premise and they do the unexpected and beat those 3 teams in the same year. That means you got off to a slow start too, right? So could Nebraska weather a slow start? I don't know. It seems like this staff is equipped to better deal with a slow start because they've told you all along this is going to be a slow burn. I know they said this is more like year 2 than year 1, but the expectations, they haven't projected them to be lofty, right? They haven't given you that inkling. Now, I know people want to look at the schedule, but I've always, and you fine folks know, like I'm not a look at the schedule guy because I just think you get in trouble. You haven't earned the right. You haven't been good enough. Just win the next one and then the next one and then the next one, which is why the question stumped me. Like, what would I do? Having had 24 hours to think about it, I still think I would take Nebraska finishing better the second half of the season than the first. Why? Because I don't think Northwestern is going to be in the hunt. Michigan is a great win, would be a great win, but it's still, for the time being, on the other half, it's in the East. And we've seen Nebraska have a big win in the East, Michigan State, right? A couple years ago under Riley, and like one of our callers said, that didn't amount to a hill of beans, right? It was what it was. But the Minnesota in the opener is stumping me a little bit. I think Minnesota's struggling a little bit. They've had a tumultuous offseason. We talked to a Minnesota beat writer yesterday, and I mean, he agreed. It is very up and down. And he actually put more stock or more belief in Minnesota's passing game with what they're returning than in their running game. And I don't know how you feel about Calicanis, but do you look at him and think passer? I don't know. Right? You've had some staff turnover. The portal has portaled. Did we make any sweeping generalizations about Minnesota? I'd love to get that first one out of the way because I think Nebraska could in turn function at a pretty high level because I think they'll get Colorado. But if you're only going to win 6, I don't know if I want to lose those last 5 games. I don't. So after thinking about it, I'm settled in. Give me the 3-game set of Iowa, Wisconsin, and Maryland so you can feel good about yourself on the uptick heading into what would be a bowl game. Fact or fiction? I don't know. I guess a lot of it stems from the fact, do you believe Nebraska could recover? Or could we recover with a slow start? Like what beating those 3 teams, if that's your choice, would mean. Because that means they're off to an awful slow start. Could we weather the storm as a fan base? Fudge! I don't know. But I do know one thing. I think the combination of Wisconsin, Iowa, and Maryland would be a lot more satisfying to the fan base than Michigan, Minnesota, and Northwestern. To be or not to be? I don't know. That's the question. Another episode of Benning Bites. Make sure, however you get us, Apple, Google, Spotify. Fantastic show coming up. It'll be a busy show, busy week. A lot going on. We'll try to get you caught up. Kind of previewing some of Nebraska's opponents, our mini version of the Big Ten whip. We've, of course, got the NBA, the NHL, college baseball. Oh, Nebraska, Creighton. Was that a marathon last night? Kinda. We'll talk about it. Don't you dare miss it. It's coffee and cream in the morning. Give my man Andrew Rogers a follow at Andrew Rogers CC. It's another episode of Benning Bites.